K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we're expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org. The leader in talk radio on the Internet, right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network.
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Don't expect us to admit a mistake. We're paying off election debts to those on the take. Attorney General's lying even while
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
Well, all right, folks. Happy Monday. We've made it through another one. This is America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. And yes, Monday, the work day for a lot of us, is officially in the books. However, my work day is not over yet. I am, of course, the host of America Off the Rails and the programming director here at K98 Talk. A little bit of housekeeping. For those of you who are keeping up with the multitude of ways you are now starting to be able to find this show, it is now available through FM Player as well. It was just added last evening. So now we are available on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, iTunes, anytime the station itself is live with this broadcast. iTunes, actually, all the time. TuneIn Radio, whenever the station's live with this broadcast. And, of course, now, FM Player, pardon me, SoundCloud, and there's the Spreaker page. Kind of hard to forget the one that actually started most of this. All right, so again, this is a very special episode this evening. Here in just a little bit, I will be bringing the host of Red Nation Radio on with me, and they'll be hanging out with me for the remainder of the hour. We're going to give you guys a chance to get to know a little bit more about them in the event that a lot of you that listen to this show may not have quite checked theirs out yet. So we definitely want to make sure that you guys give them a chance. They're here every Thursday night right after my show is over, so make sure you check them out. Now, before I forget, because I haven't done it in a while, a big shout out to Dirty Uncles. Thanks to them and their permission, anytime we go to break, commercial, intro, outro, you're hearing one of their songs, and it's actually a really great song. If you want to hear more about that song, feel free to go to their SoundCloud page, and you can find the song itself, which sadly, unfortunately, since I've listed it differently, the name actually escapes me for the moment. But they have about 6 or 7 different songs, and this is, of course, one of them. I think it's Face of a New Democracy, but I'm probably butchering the title. Anyway, so this evening, as soon as this show concludes, you will hear a replay of the Liz Harrison radio show, which aired earlier today, and then there will be a replay for the Real Serious Nonsense crew, and then, of course, the Daniel Stafford show will be live after that. So that will conclude the majority of our broadcast for the evening until 1 o'clock in the morning when the Late Night in the Midlands crew kick off. But there'll still be stuff playing in the meantime. All right, so I think I've done enough housekeeping at the moment, so let's make the guests feel welcome here. Give me just 1 second.
Attention Patriots, Red Nation Rising Radio is about to begin.
Okay, so not technically because they're here with me, but I still wanted to give them at least a little bit of their intro. So without further ado, here are Jared and Lou, host of Red Nation Rising Radio. Good evening, folks. How are you?
Hey, Rick, how's it going?
It's going. How are you guys doing today?
Good. We're
All right.
good.
It's really a pleasure to have you guys on. So in the event that we have folks that maybe haven't tuned in for you guys yet, which would be a big surprise because you guys have gotten some pretty good numbers since you've been over. But just in the event that we've got a few stragglers here, why don't you guys tell them a little bit about what it is that you do, maybe what got you started in this whole crazy thing we call internet radio, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Wow, so who's going to go first? Jared, you go first.
Okay, I'll go first. Well, I woke up politically after 9/11 like a lot of people my age, I think. And it wasn't until Obama was to that election cycle where I started getting involved in social media. And then, say, after 2010, I started to get more involved and I started writing a little bit. And it just kind of kept doing more. And finally, I was writing for a few more sites, and I was meeting a few more people, and I met Jim Lysat at Red Nation Rising. I started using that hashtag a lot, and I realized, wow, there's something, these people are really, dedicated, smart, and it was growing like wildfire. So we had a phone conversation, and I started working with him a little bit. Then I went over to War, and we had a show over there. We started a show, and I found that this is a great medium to reach out to people. It gives people a voice. We try to provide a voice for everyone in the Red Nation Rising community. We try to get people to contribute to the show, and we involve them during the show. So,
yeah, I do have to admit that is a really novel approach. I like the fact that you guys actually put the chat room to really good use and actually kind of treat it as a town hall type radio session.
It's about the community's voice. It's our hashtag and the people that use it, all of our state accounts and the people that interact with our main account know that, which is at Red Nation Rising. They know that we are very much about their opinion and not our opinion, and everybody's opinion. And it's one of the few places on Twitter where you can interact with people and actually have an honest debate without being attacked. And I think that people know us as that open, honest debate for everyone. And you'd be surprised sometimes the people who jump in with us on our hashtag.
No, I probably wouldn't, because usually if there's a pretty popular hashtag, almost everybody tries to get involved in it at one point or another.
From every side, from every point on the spectrum, almost from the left to the right, and especially over some of the recent events, we find that we agree on things that we never thought that we would agree on. We disagree on a lot, but every now and then we run across things that we actually agree on. So it's really pretty fascinating.
Well, I mean, it reminds me of one of the reasons why I actually started this crazy project. Kind of like Jared, I started out writing and doing social media, and then one day I just felt like I wanted to take my keyboard and just smash it. So I found another way to get a few things started, and we've been doing this now for a few years. Talk has just now gotten to the point where it's really started to take off, but I'd been kind of, as my friends put it when I first started the project, I've been chasing windmills now for about 3.5 years, because they looked at me like I was crazy when I told them I was going to start doing internet radio. But that's
I can imagine, especially when it was new.
But yeah, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so basically it's similar situation. But one of the things that I've always said is, unless you're an extremist, and honestly, I mean like extreme on either side, most of the time, if you can put the few issues aside that we're never going to agree on, we have more in common with each other than we do the idiots in D.C., and that's one of the things that I've been screaming from my little molehill from the day I started. I'm not sure it's catching on yet, but I'm still trying.
Well, that's really interesting that you said that, because Jared told his story a little bit about, kind of how he woke up politically. And my story's not nearly as passionate or as beautiful, but I've pretty much been a conservative all my life. I describe myself as a Lockean, and most people I have to kind of explain that too, but it's just really a constitutionalist. And I've been that way. I think I was born that way, actually, because I don't remember ever not feeling that way. I majored in political science, and I've worked in communications most of my career. So it's really not, that interesting a path as to how I got here. The Red Nation Rising story, on the other hand, is a really interesting story. You've heard us tell it. It's in our promo. We started just from a few tweets and a few people interacting right after the 2012 election, and we were pretty disappointed people, and it was a way for us to turn the conversation from a very negative what might happen next into a positive, we can turn this around.
Yeah, a rallying point.
It is a rallying cry.
Well, yeah,
sure.
and that's definitely true. I mean, I've noticed. I've actually started to get to know Jim a little bit through social media too, and it's amazing because he's like, well, because I actually private messaged him once, and I said, okay, you got to tell me how in the world you have gotten to the point where you have so many people following you now. He's like, use the hashtag a lot. It's fine, you can use it. And I'm like, but I don't know when it's okay to use it, when it's not okay to use it. He's like, just use it. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
So, it is you should think of our hashtag as a public building, as the Lincoln Memorial. It's the mall. It's a place for people to assemble and scream and vent and whatever they need to do, and everybody is welcome. Our hashtag is a big tent.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the impression that I got about it. And I do use it occasionally when I feel it's fitting, but there are things that I tweet about that I don't necessarily think should have the Red Nation hashtag. But I do use it when I feel it's appropriate, and I do appreciate the fact that it's been extended to me as well. Now, you mentioned something pretty profound when you started talking about the 2012 election. I don't know about you guys, but the reason that I was so disappointed at the end of that election cycle was because we were spoon-fed the fact that this was a shoo-in for us. From like day one, they were quoting all these different things, and there's no way that president with this low of approval rating has ever been reelected again, blah, blah, blah. And they even went so far as to say it was one of these things where whoever won the football game the night before the election usually determined who got the nod, because it's always worked that way. And the side that always won, that leaned towards Republican, had folks like Karl Rove like the day before going, oh yeah, it's a shoo-in. And personally, I hate to say this because I don't know if either of you are Karl Rove fans, but he needs to go away.
Well, at this point, I don't know why they don't just drag out Punxsutawney Phil and let him predict the election at this point, because he's probably more right, and he's not even 50-50. Poor Phil doesn't even get when spring is coming right 50% of the time. So you can flip a coin and be more accurate than Phil, and Punxsutawney Phil, I think, is more accurate than Karl Rove. So, yeah, I think it's an exercise in futility myself, actually, and it does just disappoint you when it doesn't go the way that you want it to go, and you've been spoon-fed, like you said, to believe it's going to go.
Well, I mean, honestly, I really still don't fully understand how in the world the 2012 election swung the way it did, because there really hasn't been a precedent for any of this before. But again, before Obama was elected the first time, there was no precedent for that either. Nobody who was a sitting senator had ever been elected president, much less now elected twice. And the approval ratings and everything else aside, it just proves that we have become a low information voting society, and all we're interested in is sound bites and what we can see on YouTube. And that's
lots of Kool-Aid for half the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lots of Kool-Aid.
Yeah. And Vine was invented for a reason. What's a Vine video, like 7 seconds? That's
the attention span of a cockroach. And something happened, and the last two debates, first debate, Romney came out swinging. The last two, it was like he didn't really care about it anymore. And later on, people said, they said things, but he didn't even talk about Benghazi, but maybe one sentence, and that was right after it happened. So I just think that they didn't want to win. I mean, don't you think that some of these elections for some of the larger races are kind of agreed upon ahead of time? I mean, the evidence just...
I don't want to think that, but I'm really starting to feel that way. I honestly feel like anymore our political system has become a brand war.
I think that's absolutely astute. It is a brand war, and it's about who has the bigger brand, right? And you can watch Hillary now. She operates like a public affairs department, and it's all about the brand, and it's all about her brand equity. It has absolutely nothing to do with policy or even politics unless they can turn politics into the right brand message. So I think you're absolutely dead on that one.
And at the time, the messaging in 2012, there was not good messaging, and there isn't the greatest messaging now for the Republican Party.
No, they're kind of all over the place. There's so many candidates in the field. The message from the conservative side seems to be all over the place, and when they start agreeing on things, they kind of worry me a little bit. It makes me a little uneasy when they all agree on something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
So I get a little bit worried. It's suspicious. Maybe is a good word. But from a communications perspective, those of us in the field kind of tilt our head again like my golden retriever and go, huh? What did they just do? Just like in the debate where Jared was talking about, where he just totally dropped the ball. And you can almost see it on his face where his face drops because there's messaging that he wants to use, but he knows that he can't, right? So I've been in that situation before where I'm asked a question. I know what I want to say, but I can't say it because my messaging is something different.
It's like in boxing. They tell you to take a fall because the money that's on it, and the boxer is supposed to take a fall, right? Right.
So a lot of us in the industry were really questioning that look. We were like, we would say to just see the look. It was like the messaging look. I can't say what I want to say because I have to repeat my key messages. It was really weird.
Well, that look that you're talking about, it honestly almost reminded me as if somebody was in his ear and he was about to go in and he was ordered off. I mean, I don't know if they had that type of communication going on, but that was the look it was, because he knew what he wanted to say. He was ready to go, and it was like he was told no. And I don't know if maybe they told him no.
Like he's got that feedback bud in his ear.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if they told him no beforehand or if there was somebody that was actually just kind of in his ear going, no, we can't do that. Because that's the thing that, excuse my language, but that's the thing that really pissed me off between the first and the second debates, was because during the second debate, he outright caught Obama in a lie, and he knew it. And I along with like 150 other people, started emailing Romney's camp and saying, look, you've blatantly caught him in a lie because of Candy Crowley deciding to step in the middle of this thing, and you should really push that in the third debate. We were basically told, in no uncertain terms by reading between the lines, that his camp had decided to take a higher road, so they were not going to pursue the fact that he outright lied in the second debate.
Well, that doesn't surprise me because I know some of the people that were on his campaign in communications, and it doesn't surprise me at all. And it actually sounds exactly like one of them, almost like she wrote it. We've decided we're going to take a higher road. And that works great in a lot of industries. But when you're up against a Democrat political machine, that tactic does not work. You cannot take the high road when someone is chopping at you at your ankles. It's never going to work.
Especially with all the things it turns out he was actually right on. I mean, he was not my ideal candidate, do not get me wrong, but once the party swung in behind him, I did what I felt I had to do, and I tried to support him. But almost everything that he said in the debates that he got made fun of has actually happened. We are basically now in a resurgence of the Cold War with Russia. We now have the fighting going on in Ukraine, which he and Sarah Palin had also talked about. And I've actually played audio of that over and over and over again, where I've got a clip of Obama making fun of him, and then the news story of the whole invasion of Ukraine coming in right afterwards. And it astounds me how right he actually was. And it disturbs me that even though he was astute enough to know exactly what we would have needed to know, at some point he decided to lay down on the mat. That's the reason why, if he ever gets in the ring again, I can't support him. Because he's already proven that while he's a nice guy And I would probably, if he ever decided to not be Mormon, sit down and have a beer with him, or a glass of milk in his case, just to get a chance to talk to him, because he's made millions of dollars. Why would I not do that? But I can't.
I'm sure he's a great guy.
It.
Yeah.
And I find
some
myself,
of the worst politicians are great guys.
And I find myself, unfortunately, having the majority of the same problems with everybody that's thrown their hat in the ring right now on the Republican Party. I mean, it's like it's become a circus. When you look at all of the different candidates that are out, and we've got some that are supposedly against TPA, others that are for TPA. We've got now Donald Trump, who I'm pretty sure is basically using this as a giant press machine for some other announcement that he's going to make before the six-month deadline is up. Just because he's done it before. I mean, I don't trust him, because this is the same thing he did in 12. He's like, oh, I'm in. Nope, I'm out. No more hokey pokey, Donald. You're either in or you're out. I don't care.
You got to admit, the speech was pretty good off the cuff, though. I mean, you can't make speeches like that as a presidential candidate all the time. You have to be on topic. But it fired people up. I don't know if he paid the people to be there to get fired up, but it fired me up a little bit, because
apparently,
we need a president that's not politically
he paid
correct.
Quite a few, but
he's great in the race, right? So there's a lot of people there are people that will make great presidents. There are people that will make great candidates, and there are some people that are just great to have in the race for different reasons. And I think that Trump may be one of those people that's great in the race. It's good to have him around. He's the comic relief. He is the person that others can attack. You know, potentially he draws some negative attention away from some other people, because, I mean, it's almost a watch the birdie kind of thing. It's like, watch Trump while we do some real work over here. And that's not to put him down, but at all. But sometimes I think that, you know, that just like you said, they're decided upon in advance. Some of those things are decided upon in advance. I don't know why they would decide they were going to have, 12, 14, 16 people if they were deciding in advance in one race. But we know how long half of those people will last, maybe till January or February, and they'll be gone. I don't know if that's good or not either. You know, but it's a very bizarre year. I will give you that.
So did you guys hear in the speech where he gave it there, where Trump gave the shout out of how much money he's actually supposedly worth?
Yeah.
He went into detail about his net worth.
$8,737,540,000.
Donald, why is it every time I mention that you start talking? I mean, come on, dude. How many times you got to tell us how much money you're worth? The thing that's interesting about that, though, is if you look at the Forbes information, they cut it in half. So
that was interesting that Forbes was so different. But my favorite part was when he just kept going, "I'm really rich," and he'd tell another story, and then he'd go, "I'm really rich."
Well, I mean, being rich is all well and good, and I like that. And with as messed up as our economy is, it would probably be a good idea to have somebody that knows how to make money to run the country. That's one of the reasons why ultimately the last time I did side with Romney, because, I mean, he may not be as rich as Trump. I don't remember his bottom line, but it's nothing too shabby. So it's not like he hasn't been able to run a corporation before. And let's face it, with as conglomerated and messed up and weird as everything is now, basically our country is one giant corporation. So it would make sense to put somebody in that knows how to run one.
It's the giantest of all corporations, actually.
Yep.
Our government. It's the Leviathan. It's taken on a life of its own at this point. I don't know that you can actually manage it like you do a company. I think that you might have to take it down like a dragon and start all over again.
That's what Obama's done, the taking down part for us. Now let's start it over, right?
Potentially, yeah, exactly. Implode upon itself. I mean, when you have government people that are not working. So, and I think I saw a study, it's like 60% of government workers work really, really hard to make up for the 40% that aren't really working that hard, but they're all getting the same compensation. They're all getting the same bonuses. And being one of those 60% must be extremely disheartening. I feel sorry for those people. I want to get rid of the 40 that aren't working and reward the 60% that are for working so hard for us.
We need some of the bureaucracies that are useless. When during the sequester at the beginning of it, they shut down the EPA, and they went down to, I don't know, 10 or 15% staffing, and nobody even noticed that they didn't have the full 100% staffing because they didn't even do anything. So there's so much waste, there's so many departments they don't even need. They should just fire those employees that don't do anything. They could still get by.
Right, because the ones that are working hard are really the ones that are suffering for those and the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the biggest thing to keep in mind when it comes to government bureaucracy is the only thing the government is designed to do is basically sustain itself. So the problem is, at one point or another, it becomes less about sustaining itself and more about making itself as large as possible, which is what a lot of our founding fathers warned us against, and nobody's listening anymore. The reason the EPA is so large now that they can do away with 85% of their staff is because they've poured so much money into it because they have to, because otherwise they can't justify their own existence anymore.
Exactly, and that was exactly why I called it a Leviathan, because it is exactly that thing that John Locke warned us about. It has become the Leviathan. It's not on its way to getting there. It's beyond there.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I actually saw, I think it was either a T-shirt or a bumper sticker, but I was like really jealous that I didn't come up with the idea, because it said in 2015 we have the government our founding fathers warned us about.
Oh,
I was like, man, I wish I would have thought of that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and probably some of us would say that it's probably 100 years past, but
well, I mean,
we're way beyond where they ever wanted us to be. That's for sure.
All right, so at this point, folks, we are going to have to go ahead and take a really quick break. We will be back with Jared and Lou, hosts of Red Nation Rising Radio, right here on America Off the Rails. And don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, folks, as we go to break, I have a question. Are you in the market for a dependable used vehicle? Because if so, I know somewhere you need to check out today. They're located in Pryor, Oklahoma. It is Roberts Auto Chevy, Roberts Auto Dodge, and Roberts Ford Lincoln. They're, again, located in Pryor. They have over 2,000 vehicles available between the three lots. And if they don't have what you're looking for, they can and will find it for you if possible and still give you the best deal available. Call Ryan today at 918-693-2866. Again, that's Ryan, 918-693-2866. And tell him Rick from K98 Talk sent you, and they'll even give you a better deal. Can't beat that, folks. We'll be right back.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members or their families, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to keep them secure for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Join us at findwwp.org.
Red Nation Rising brings you Town Hall Radio.
From a single tweet to 3 million a month, our community is a force to be reckoned with on social media.
So don't miss our show, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on K98 Talk.
Our chat room is our co-host, and you ask the question.
Join us and be heard.
So get ready to sound off on Red Nation Rising Radio. No one else is going to do it for you.
There's a wild, wild whisper blowing in the wind, calling out my name like a long lost friend.
Are you conservative in a world of liberal?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're not alone. Hey, I'm Daniel Stafford, host of the Stafford Voice, and I'd like to invite you to tune in each Monday, 10 p.m. Eastern, where I'll break down the events of the week, and together we'll learn about how they affect you. So, sit back and get ready for the good, the bad, and the ugly of talk radio right here on K98 Talk.
Calls, we got a pen and telephone to bypass all your laws. Political correctness will replace the bill. Both religious freedom, lest you pray to Jesus. Jesus Christ.
All right, folks, we're back. We're live. This is America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson, and I am again joined today by the host of Red Nation Rising Radio. Now, I think we're going to go ahead and change gears just for a little bit and then give them the last few minutes of the show to give any shout-outs or upcoming promotions. But we do want to spend some time talking about the whole TPA, TPP situation, all that fun stuff. Because, you know, what better thing to do than to start talking about government acronyms, because they're such a headache.
Right, exactly. And we've already established that you can throw pretty much any random acronym at somebody and they'll tell you they like it, even though they don't know what you're talking about. They won't admit that they don't know what it is. They'll just say, "Oh yeah, it's a good idea."
So you know what honestly scares me about TPA and TPP and all that other stuff, just to be completely honest? I basically eat, sleep, breathe politics, news, information, anything that I can find. I've been that way since high school. I actually graduated high school with 26 social science credits. I actually started working in political science when I went to college and then changed majors because I just decided that I was young, stupid, didn't think any of it really mattered, and now I'm kicking myself. But that's a story for another day. So anyway, one of the things that scares the crap out of me when it comes to TPA, TPP, and OPP, and TPIP, and TPWTF, whatever the heck else you want to talk about, is the fact that even with as immersed as I am in all of it, I had no idea exactly how scary this crap was. So I can imagine all of the people that are just basically going about their daily lives, hearing these acronyms and have no freaking clue that basically this is the groundwork to give away our sovereignty, whether anybody wants to admit it or not. That is the thing that scares me the most about all of this, and you can call me tinfoil hat wearer, conspiracy theorist. I'll wear that badge with honor at this point, because this stuff is the foundation to giving away American sovereignty, and I will not back down from that until somebody admits that it's true.
There's no tinfoil hat needed, because if you read the things that can happen if a unilateral does the trade deal, sovereignty can be handed over. It's just a fact by what we know of it. I mean, it's the worst thing I've seen this entire. Not quite as bad as the NDAA for other reasons, but the future ramifications of whatever trade deal he makes before he leaves, because he's going to do as much damage as he can before January 20th, 2017. It's just bad. No tinfoil hat needed. I'm with you.
Well, no,
I can even from a scientific perspective, I can't really look at it and tell either. If I step back and separate my opinion, I can't look at it and tell either one of you that you're wrong, because you know the patterns of logic. You judge someone's action to figure out what their intentions and their agenda and their end game is, and if you just look at past history, recent actions. What Jared said is, the most likely, most obvious answer to what's going on, I think, that's what's scary to me, Rick.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's look at this logically and honestly for just a moment, because as you said, the best indication of future events is past behavior. We have a president that openly despises our country and has said so. His wife openly despises this country and has said so, but nobody wanted to listen to them when they said it. He blatantly and deliberately slapped one of our biggest allies in the face pretty much like 2 days after he took office, and sent the bust of Churchill back across the pond because he doesn't like Great Britain. And I think a lot of that has to do with something to do with either his father or his grandfather. I don't remember which. But the simple fact of the matter is he has always viewed us as some sort of an empire or an empirical nation, and he thinks we need to be brought down a few pegs. The problem is his mindset aligns with a lot of folks with a lot of money behind the scenes that want us brought down a few pegs, because after World War II, they came up with this idea that if we build up the rest of the country, eventually, or rest of the world, eventually we can get to a one world government. They've been trying to do that for almost 100 years, maybe a little over, if you count World War I and the about a decade before.
Right at about that. I think you're right.
The problem is it didn't work. What they've been able to find out is it's much easier to tear down something than it is to build up everything else. And I think that's one of the reasons why we see our country and the Western world in such a state of attack, because it's not just happening here. It's happening everywhere. The problem is Europe is about 20 years ahead of us because they've been doing it longer.
Well, it's a lot harder here because we enjoy freedom. And when the European changes. They haven't had 200, 300 years of relative freedom to enjoy the way that we have. So it's been a much harder road for those people that, and we've talked about this on our show with Randy Arrington in depth, those people that want to tear us down, that don't believe in the American dream or the American experiment, and actually mock the idea of the American experiment as people that want to tear us down. It's taken them a lot longer in this country, because once someone enjoys freedom, it's that much harder to take it away. And unless you do this slow creep of, well, we're going to pick this freedom off of your plate and then we'll pick this freedom off of your plate, and then we'll pick this freedom off of your plate, it's really impossible to do it. That's what we've seen over the past, nearly 100 years is, well, we're going to just pick this freedom off your plate and you won't notice. And by the time we're done, everything that you ever held dear is gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole analogy of the frog in the pot. It's a myth because it doesn't work. I won't tell you how I know, but basically, the whole.
Because you were a 9-year-old boy at one point.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole idea of you throw a frog in a pot and turn on the water and bring it to a boil really slowly, and they eventually cook because they don't notice the temperature rising. It may be a myth, but it works in politics, and it's been working fairly well for over 100 some odd years. What the thing that really concerns me the most when it comes to the future of our country is if you ask anybody below about the age of, say, 25, 26-ish, most of them are ready to throw their hat in the ring with Bernie Sanders and go full on socialism. And that scares the bejesus out of me, to be quite frankly honest. He's gotten a lot better numbers than I expected him to get for as crazy as he actually is.
I'm going to let you take that one, Jared.
No, I was just thinking, the reason I started getting into this stuff is because I keep thinking of my kids and look around, and what's acceptable now is different from 30 years ago. And what you just said, they want socialism. They say, some say, what's so bad about communism? What's so bad about it? They have no clue. I don't have proof, but I don't think they're teaching kids in school the things they need to know about history and what can happen if we went down that road.
Oh, I think they obviously don't, because we're still talking about the 6 million Jews that Hitler killed, which was horrible, and I hope we never forget the Holocaust, even though some people would really like for us to and believe that it never happened. But Lenin and Stalin killed more people than Hitler did, and Mao has killed, and the Chinese communist government has killed far more people than the USSR ever did. So the communists and socialists, because Hitler was really a fascist socialist, they kill people who don't agree with them, and it escalates over time. So Hitler, he killed 6 million people, and Lenin and Stalin killed 9, and I think the Chinese government's up to, 12 or 13 at this point? I lose track of that number. It's a hard one to track because it keeps getting higher and higher and higher. It seems to be no end date to it. So I'm at the same loss that you guys are. What are they teaching our kids in school? I certainly learned that. Of course, I went to school during the Cold War, most of it. But we certainly learned of all the deaths and all the killing and, the murder of Chinese babies and things like that. And I don't hear kids talking about that anymore, and they don't know.
Well, I mean, think about this for just a second, though, because one of the things that you mentioned was one of the things that absolutely terrified me when I was a kid. When we started learning about the fact that in China, you can typically only have, I believe it's one child. After that, if you get pregnant again, typically they force you to have an abortion. So there's no...
unless it's a male.
Well, yeah, unless it's a male. And that part I actually forgot about until you said something. But the biggest thing to keep in mind is, of course, the children in this day and age aren't going to be as shocked by that, because how many babies are aborted here every day? They're used to it. It happens every day. They hear about it on the news. I mean, it's just one of those things where incrementally, it's another one of those things where they have become accustomed to the death of children. So now it's perfectly acceptable that in another country, because it's not our country anyway, so it's none of our business, that we have a bunch of communists that are killing babies because if it's not a male child, you can only have one, and that's it. And it's another one of those things where over time, we fell asleep, we haven't been paying attention, so now we have all of these folks that are being taught how socialism is a good thing, because, there's countries like Sweden and everywhere else, or wherever it's Scandinavia or wherever it is, that's like one of the happiest countries in the world because they have like $25 an hour minimum wage and free healthcare and everything else. I'm thinking, well, if it's so great, why don't you just go move there and quit trying to make this country that way?
Because they won't let you. They don't.
Well, that's my point. They don't let you move there.
It's too hard to get in. The immigration, they actually have immigration laws in those countries that they enforce.
Well,
so,
yeah, but
good luck
God forbid
there.
God forbid we try to enforce ours. Every other, that's the other thing that drives me crazy. Every other country in the world is allowed to basically deign their own sovereignty, and most of the time, if we try to get involved in it, we're the ones that are called warmongers and everywhere else and everything else. Mm-hmm. But God forbid we try to enforce our laws. Which honestly, if you really stop and think about it, our immigration policies were put into place because of some of the things that happened in our past. We wanted to make sure that there were laws to keep people that were coming in on a certain path, so we didn't wind up having even more genocide than we had with everything that happened when the New World was first discovered. So a lot of these laws were actually put in place as a protection, but now they're being viewed as some sort of evil because, if you go back to the Indians, Native Americans, then we are all illegal immigrants and we should all go home. When the simple fact of the matter is nobody knew what an illegal immigrant was back then. So.
Well, I think that's true, and again, there's a lot of different theories on how it happens, why it happens, when it happened. But there was a point in our history that everyone considered themselves an American, and even if they'd only been here, even if they came through Ellis Island, once their feet hit the ground, they were American, and they were doggone proud to be that. And at some point in the process, that became not so cool. And that's not necessarily the case anymore. So you see school kids in high schools fighting it out between whether it's, whether or not to celebrate Cinco de Mayo. Well, you can celebrate Cinco de Mayo if you want to, but it's Mexican independence and this is America. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for a school to do that, especially when they won't observe a federal holiday like Christmas. So the whole thing has it's part of the desensitization, I think, couldn't get that word out. And I think it's also part of just, and I won't call it what Randy Arrington calls it, because it's not a very nice word, but it is part of a brainwashing and a guilt tripping of America.
You talk about the guilt tripping. Have you ever had someone say to you on Twitter or somewhere else, when you talk about illegal immigration, they say, well, what about whatever happened to bring us? You're sick, you're weary, you're tired. I think it's on the Statue of Liberty or something. I say, look, that was written when there was no welfare state in America. They came here and they got a job and they assimilated. They kept their culture, but they also assimilated ours. We did not have welfare where you could come over the border illegally. You could commit a crime even and get released on the street, like what recently happened, 121 illegal immigrant criminals. So people will throw that in my face and I'll say, there was no welfare state at that time. People came here to work, and that was what an immigrant is. And there's still some of them that do that.
And it is inscripted. That is inscripted on the Statue of Liberty. A lot of people think that it's on her book, but it's not. It's at the base of the Statue of Liberty, and it is the kind of the motto of the Statue of Liberty, and it has been repeated a lot. And I have gotten that, but my answer to them is visit Ellis Island and see how they process those people that you're talking about, because it wasn't head on into New York City and flood the borders and go wherever you want to. There was a process for that, and it was the reason that Ellis Island was built and a single port of entry was built for the United States to begin with, because of those sorts of things. So what we do now is probably more lenient than anything that we've done in at least 100 years.
Yeah.
To say that it's cruel or inhumane to not have open borders, to close the borders, especially on the South, to say that that's inhumane is absolutely insane, because the people that are coming through that border, especially the ones that are underage, are trafficked. They're not treated well when they leave their countries. They're not treated well on the way, and they are not treated well when they get here. And a lot of it is run by Mexican gangs. So that is the biggest false flag that people give for things like that, is the kind of comment that you get on Twitter for things like that, Jared.
Pot. We were a melting pot, and now we're a chamber pot.
And that's
I hadn't heard it put that way
No.
before. That's actually, can I borrow that?
It's very well put, and it's the truth, and it was our policies, it was our guilt tripping, just like you said, Jared, that led to that. So they guilt tripped us into laying the law aside and letting people, abuse our laws. And what have we ended up with? A chamber pot. From a melting pot to a chamber pot. It's a great analogy, Jared.
No, I do have to tip my hat to you to that one, because that actually really is a good analogy. Because it is basically what we have now, because we don't have any type of regulation anymore about the folks that are coming across. We have all of these folks that basically come over here to commit some sort of crime and then basically run back across the border, and they do so ad infinitum. And I really don't understand how, when up until all of a sudden there was some sort of an agreement made between Mexico and some other South American countries to have all these refugees start running up, where up until that point they had armed guards on their southern border, and they were shooting people for trying to get into Mexico.
They're back.
Oh, they're back
I don't
again?
know if you heard. They're back.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Armed guards.
I didn't know they'd put them back in. But that's another thing.
Over the weekend, I think. Yeah.
But that's another thing that has always kind of set me off. Is you guys we're supposedly bad people because we want people to follow rules to get in here. When you've got other countries that basically shoot people for trying to cross their border, but we're the evil ones.
Try to cross the border between Iraq and Iran and see what happens.
Yeah, and they shot a helicopter a few weeks ago. Had to land, it got blown right through the side of it. Department of Homeland Security ICE chopper, or Borders and Customs Protection, whatever. Yeah.
Well, that's a really good point. Yeah, they won't let people from other countries violate our airspace. Why do they let them cross the border? Well, they don't have to deal with the people that cross the border. It's states like Texas and New Mexico and Arizona that have to deal with those people, and even all the way up here into North Carolina.
Oh yeah, trust me.
They don't have to deal with them in D.C.
They're making it in Oklahoma too. I mean, we're not that far from Texas.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But
I'm sure.
But
it is. But you made a really good point, Rick, that I don't want to let go. That is one of the basic criteria for being a country/state to begin with, is having borders and protecting them. And not protecting your border as a country is like not protecting your copyright as a company. Right. You lose it. And you will, when you talk about giving up our sovereignty, nothing does that. No bill, no UN agreement will ever do that in the way that letting people pass through our borders unabated. Is that the right word?
Yep.
Unencumbered.
That works too.
Yeah. Nothing else will ever make the impact on our sovereignty that makes. It does more damage to our sovereignty than anything does.
Well, and let's just be completely clear, since we've kind of been talking borders for the last few minutes. There are countries in South America that are trading partners and friends with Iran. They have military bases there. For the past several months, up until, I guess, this weekend when they put the guards back up, we've had folks coming in from those countries, and we have no way of knowing whether they're in any way affiliated with Iran or any other groups as far as ISIS or ISIL or whatever acronym you want to call them as well. And that's what scares me as well, is because we've had our borders open for so long. We don't know the number of people that are already in here that don't want this country to survive, that don't want it to thrive, and eventually do.
But they're telling us they're tracking them. That's the whole point, Rick. They're tracking them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they were Americans or conservatives, I could kind of see how quickly they could track them. Because I mean, look at how many groups were targeted during the last election cycle. But I guarantee
I might believe they were actually tracking them if they were conservative.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was trying to say. It just didn't work. So Thanks for the save.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that I could believe.
All right. Bye. So at this point, we are actually getting towards the end of the show. Is there any type of future promotions you guys want to do, or anything else you want to touch on before we start winding down? Because we are almost out of time.
Yep, Jared's got some updates. Go, Jared.
Today, yeah, it was interesting today. One of the tweets for Red Nation Rising showed up on the Blaze. I thought that was kind of cool.
Awesome.
The one, Ted Cruz, the AP put that picture. They framed that picture so that it had the gun aimed at Ted Cruz's head. And Red Nation Rising tweeted, sending a message to one of your liberal nut job readers at AP. Photo lines up gun with Ted Cruz's head. It's on Breitbart, the article. So AP, Blaze put that in one of their articles. So that was kind of cool. Just thought I'd mention that.
Kind of cool. That's like awesome.
It happens. You'd be surprised. And the other thing, I don't want to run out of time without saying that tonight, major blitz on Twitter. You want to fill in on that, Lou?
Yeah, on the hashtag, but starting at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, we are going to be hammering senators. You can get a list or find the senators from your state, or get a list of senators to hammer at senate.gov and click on members. It gives you the whole list, gives you phone numbers and everything. We're tweeting out their phone numbers or tweeting out their Twitter handles, and we're hammering them on TPA because the Senate will vote on TPA tomorrow. If they pass TPA, it goes to the president. I think we know what happens to it there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and this is just to, I don't know, maybe throw a little bit of water in the situation. But since they've technically already passed it once when it was grouped with the other stuff, how do you guys think our chances are for stopping this tomorrow? Because I got to say, I'm going to keep swinging, but I'm not optimistic.
Well, I'm not very optimistic either, but I can, and Mitch McConnell thinks he has the votes to pass it. I think they're insane. I can't believe they're doing this, and I can guarantee there are 3 senators running for president. Whether or not I support them or even think about voting for them depends on their vote on this bill.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm not that confident about it, but let me tell you, we need to know if this vote, if it passes, we need to let them know just how pissed off we are, and that we're not going to forget this. If it's the 3 presidential candidates, or it's 2016, if they're up for another seat and to renew their seat in the Senate, we're not going to forget it. We expect the Senate to be the deliberative body that it's supposed to be, correct the retaliation and the dirty tricks that have gone on in the House, and fix this situation, and send the House a message that they can't play those dirty tricks with our representatives, that we won't stand for it.
You know, the thing that surprises me, honestly, of the 3, the one that I'm the most surprised about is Ted Cruz. It's honestly, I've been toying with an article that I think I'll probably actually sit down and write this week, depending on how the vote goes. And it honestly, the title of the article, because everybody's been calling him the cruise missile, has the cruise missile lost its guidance, is actually the title I've been playing with one of the
good one
with all of this other stuff that's going on, because I mean, it's just crazy that somebody that started as a Tea Party candidate, because that's what got him into DC. He was the one that swore he was going to go in and make a difference. He was one of that group that said, if you put me in there, I'm going to go in and make a difference. Now, a few short years later, he's become part of the establishment.
Well, here's another one for you. It's from green eggs and hams to great God Obama.
Oh, Ow,
How you like that one?
That one hurt. All right, folks.
Sorry, I'm not real happy with him right now.
Yeah, no, I'm not either. And honestly, he was one of the ones that I was kind of really pulling for there for a while. And I don't know, anybody who votes for that kind of stuff. I don't think that I could actually.
It's way too much secrecy. None of them should even be considering this, and the fact that they are, it tells me that they either completely lost touch with us in the matter of a few months, or they were never really in touch with us at all, and they were just filling us full of crap.
Kind of sounds like it might be more of that last one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Crap. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So, any last words before we get out of here?
Oh, thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
It's been a blast. We should do this again sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be fun. We'd love to. Got
All
some
right.
great guests coming up on K98.
Yeah.
You guys are packing the house. I'm just saying. I'm a little jealous.
We'll start promoting you on our show.
Hey, I can use all the help I can get. Come on, you've spent an hour with me. You've seen how it goes. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for this particular episode of America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. Again, as soon as this show concludes, you'll hear a replay of the Liz Harrison Show. Then we'll have Real Serious Nonsense up at the 8 o'clock hour Central, and then 9 o'clock hour Central, we'll have the Stafford Voice with Daniel Stafford. I want to again thank Jared and Lou for hanging out with me for the whole hour, and it's been a real pleasure, and I really do think that you guys have made a great addition here. I haven't really had much of a chance to say that kind of stuff to you, because as soon as you came on board, everything went crazy, and I started having to deal with putting out a million other fires and dealing with other situations. So I do want to take just a moment to publicly say it is an honor to have you both here, and I believe you guys have brought a lot to the lineup, and I really appreciate that, and I respect what you guys do.
Well, thank you, Rick. We're really glad to be on board. We're excited to be with K98.
All right, folks. Well, we're going to get out of here. Don't forget, stay tuned for the other stuff that comes on later. But for now, you can sit back and hear a replay of Liz Harrison, because we don't have anything in the 7 o'clock hour yet. So we'll get there. You guys have a good night.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Not a problem, guys.
Both did everything you earned by breaking your backs. We're gonna redistribute when we make our pay tax. Hey, sit back down.
Screw you guys. I'm going home. Later.
Game over, man. It's game over.